was there some books he kept on coming back to that he
Yeah.
came
So he had a lot of books, and one of his cases that he had, like his jewelry, he had the same exact one with the spiritual books in it, and he didn't go anywhere without them. So one of the guys would bring the jewelry, one of the guys would bring the spiritual, you know. I know that a lot of people always say to me, well, but he had a lot of spiritual books, didn't he? Yeah, he did. But he did have favorites, and then he would kind of go to another circuit of books, and they became his favorites for that period of time, and then he'd go to another. But he had his favorites, and they were The Leaves of Moya's Gardens, which was a little blue, tiny book. A lot of these books were very small then, and some of them are actually out of print, and they don't even print them that way anymore. They're paperback, or they look different. The Leaves of Moya's Garden, I think there were 3 series, 1, 2, and 3. One was 1924, I think one was 1935, 1938, something like that. Actually written around the time Elvis was born, because he was born in 35. Then he had, of course, his favorite book, which is The Prophet, that he gave that as a gift to a lot of people that he felt were on a spiritual path, or that had helped him in some way, or that he cared about or loved. And what I have done now in the last few years since I came out to talk about him is I have carried on that legacy for him, through him. So when I meet people that really love him, and I can see, or along the spiritual path, or that really are interested, I give them a book, and I sign it, and I autograph it, and I say, I know that Elvis would have wanted you to have this. And they're very touched by it. And I said, look, it has nothing to do with me. It's through him. I'm just the conduit. I just feel that Elvis would have liked you to have this book. I don't give it to everybody, but I give it to certain people, perhaps that I really love, that love him, and that have shown me real kindness and thoughtfulness and loyalty in the friendship, because a lot of these people I'm meeting are through Facebook, but I'm one of those people that there's a face behind somebody typing a post. There's a human being there with feelings and a family, and maybe they're going through sickness or something. I think beyond Facebook. I think beyond social media. There's a human being behind there. Just like there is in a car.
Yeah.
Oh, well, here comes this car. Well, who? There's a human being driving it. There's somebody. There's a soul in there somewhere. And so my favorite thing really is to meet his fans. When I do these things, I don't make any money. I make a little bit to pay for my dog to go into boarding. I don't charge thousands of dollars to make a guest appearance, And I'm not putting that down. I'm just saying that's who I am. I do this for the love of him. I do this for the love of his fans that he had, that he was never able to meet. So if I'm able to bring them something, to make them feel closer to him, to enlighten them as to who this man was, and not just what jumpsuit he wore on what day, and what song he sang, and when he cut the last record, that's all fine and dandy as the entertainer. But he told Larry, and he told me, that he wanted his fans to know who he was. And you don't get to know who somebody is till you really talk to them. What did they like to read? What did they like to do? How were they? You're not going to know these things on stage. You're going to see a man sing a song. You can watch clips of him. You can see that he was funny. You can see that he liked to pray. But you're not going to get the essence. The essence of Elvis Presley was his spirituality. That's the essence of who this man was. Because for me, he's still alive. But I want them to know that, because that's what he wanted them to know. You see? So it's really very, very important, and I take it very seriously. And the more that I can share with them, the closer I can bring them to him is my job. So, I get asked to go on a lot of these things, and I do it for, very little money. I say this because people, and I read it on Facebook, they go, oh, another one making money off of Elvis Presley. No. I didn't write a book. I don't have paraphernalia. It's not to say that he would have minded that. He didn't like tell-all books. He would not mind you writing a book telling sweet, fun stories about him and what a great human being he was. Who wouldn't? I would love somebody to write a book. Yeah, she was a great girl. You know, gosh, thanks. You know, we all want to be thought well of. We all want to be liked.
You don't like the gossip, the bad stories.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah. That's not what he didn't want that. Yeah. So when I do these things, I do it for the love of him. And, you know, I think that's important for his fans. They're not my fans. I don't have fans. They're his fans and my friends. I always say that.
Yeah. And you actually also, we have to go back to the story about Elvis in a short time, but you also recorded a song and you sang it actually on stage here in Denmark. And
yeah.
What made you do that?
Well, first of all, I love to sing. I've always sung. I just never sung professionally. I mean, I did with a group. We went around, you know, in college and school and all that. But I was doing so much. I mean, I was modeling, I was acting, I was doing stunt work, I was hosting, I was doing all kinds of stuff. I did not have any more time to pursue another career. And singing is one career in and of itself that you have to be very diligent about. And, you know, you're either a singer or you're a dancer or you're an actress. There are very few people that do all three. They did in the very early days when they were under contract to, say, Warner Brothers Studio or Universal. They were what we call contract players. And everybody took tap dancing lessons. You took singing lessons, acting lessons. You learned to play an instrument. I learned to play the flute. I learned to play the guitar. You were well-rounded as an entertainer, as an actor. You could do everything. So if you needed to dance and somebody said, "Can you dance? Can you sing this song?" Well, let's put a song in there. And we know you can sing. So I did, but I never went into it as a profession, as much as I love it, and I would have loved to. And Elvis and I used to sing each other to sleep at night, too. He loved to harmonize. And one of his favorite songs with Roberta Flack was The First Time Ever I Saw Your Face. And one night we were singing, we were laying in his bed at Graceland in the bedroom. And he said, "Okay, honey, let's do some Roberta." And I said, "Okay." So I said, "You want to take the high part, low part?" And he goes, "No, we'll mix it up." I said, we kept singing and singing until we fall asleep. And one of the times, he slept on the right, I slept on the left, because he liked to be near the phone, and the red phone in his important phone was on the right.
He had a red phone? Mm. Was that the important lines and he had the normal phone?
Yeah, he had a red phone. I think he had a gold phone too, if I'm not mistaken. Okay. I'm trying to think of the colors, but it's a long time ago. So he needed to be there, and the door was on that side, you know, so he needed to be on that side of the bed. And also the bathroom was just about 10 feet, so it was right from his bed to the bathroom that he could, you know, make that line without having to go around the bed.
Was it also very cold in the bedroom?
Freezing! Yeah. Freezing cold. He
liked that.
He did. And I had to wear thick jammies, like nothing sexy, and socks on my feet because I was freezing at night. And sometimes I'd forget to put the socks on, and I'd, you know, like rub his toes or something, and he'd go, "Honey," he goes, "Go put your socks on." He goes, "Your feet are freezing." And I'd say, okay. And I'd go put, you know, heavy-duty socks on. It doesn't sound sexy, but, you know, what are you going to do?
Something's needed sometimes.
So, hey, you never know. There's a time and a place to be dressed and not dressed. So, so one night we were singing harmony on Roberta Flack, and it was, he said, "You know, honey," he said, "you have a really good voice." And it was pitch black, so I didn't even need to look at him. I mean, I knew he was there. Because all the lights were out, and you know, he had the not necessarily the foil on the windows, but he had blackout drapes because, you know, he didn't like the light.
And he was sleeping in daytime.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So he said to me, "Honey, you got a really nice voice," and I said, you know, being silly like we both were, I said, "You know what? So do you." I said, "But don't quit your day job." And honest to God, I thought he was going to fall out of bed. He rolled over and he started howling with laughter. He said, "That was good." He goes, "You got me, Eminem, you got me." So very sweet, very, very sweet.
Yeah. I mean, it's great talking to you, and we are getting around a lot of things. But I have one question, and we go back to when you were on tour with Elvis. Can you of course, not every day was the same, but if you should just understand, how was a day with Elvis when he was on tour? What did you do when you were on tour with Elvis?
Actually, every day there were parts of the days which were the same. There were parts that weren't the same, because we were in different cities every day. We didn't stay in the same city every day, and sometimes we only stayed for one show, for maybe a noon show. They would hustle us to the plane, to the Lisa Marie, and we would get, normally if he was going to do another show and we're on tour, and he was going to do 2 shows that day, we would get up in that city, we'd have breakfast, and I'll tell you a fun story about the breakfast. So every day, parts of it were the same, parts of it were different, because every day we were in a different city. It was rare that we stayed 2 days in one city. He might do 2 shows a day in that one city, 12 o'clock and maybe 8 o'clock, or he would do a 12 noon show in that city. We would jump on the plane, go to another city, and he'd do an 8 o'clock show. And it would be that same. So you were going, which is very tiring, which is why some of the girls did not want to go on tour. It can be very exhausting, and it takes a lot of energy. It really does. And for the girls, you know, he wanted you to look pretty, he wanted you to look nice and dressed. So we're doing hair, makeup, the nails are done, the clothes. It's work for us, you know, even though he's got a different kind of work, it's work for us as a girlfriend. We're not going to go in there and sit at the side of the stage and not look pretty and not be there. And, you know, he wants you to look nice for him. So, and you'd want to, of course. But we would get up in the morning, and especially if there was a noon show, morning would really be the morning. If we only had an 8 o'clock show, we'd sleep, and our morning would be at maybe 4 or 5 o'clock, and then we'd have breakfast, which would be maybe 5 o'clock, something like that. But on the noon shows, we would get up in the morning, and I remember this one particular morning, Elvis actually got up before I did. And I woke up, he wasn't in the bed, and I looked around, and I looked outside, you know, our room, and the breakfast table was there. And I thought, oh boy, okay, but I didn't see Elvis there at the table. So I thought, well, maybe he's having a meeting with one of the guys or something. So I hurried to get in the shower, to get dressed and do all that. And while I'm in the shower, I hear a knock on the bathroom door. And it's one of the bodyguards. And he goes, Mindy, Mindy. I said, yeah. I said, I'm in the shower. He said, well, Elvis is sitting at the table waiting for you for breakfast. I said, I was just out there. He wasn't there. No, he's out there. He's at the table waiting for you. He wants you to come out now, because we're on a time schedule. It's not that he was being belligerent or mean or, you know, nasty or anything like that. We're on a very tight time schedule. Every second, every minute is down to the wire. So I said, okay. He said, well, just throw a towel around your head and come outside. My hair was wet. He goes, throw a robe on, put a towel around your head and come out for breakfast. So I did. So I go out. Elvis is sitting there, and he was so polite. He didn't want to eat before me. So he says,
Did you eat?
yeah, he says, come on, honey. He says, eggs are getting cold. So we had eggs. He had his bacon, always crispy, almost like blackened. I didn't eat bacon, so I think I had sausage at the time, which I don't even eat anymore. But the eggs, bacon, sausage, toast, jam, butter. I had a hot chocolate, and there was coffee and orange juice. So that was like the typical breakfast. And so he said, honey, hurry up. His eggs are getting cold. And I'm like, okay. So I lean over to give him a kiss, and I give him a kiss. I go, good morning, like that. And he goes, good morning, honey. And then he looks at me and he goes, honey? And I said, yeah. He goes, come here a minute. I said, okay. Very serious. Come here a minute. He said, now, honey. And he said very quietly. I mean, he didn't want the other guys to hear, because everybody was sitting in the room. You know, they're watching us eat, and they're doing their own thing too. So he was telling me very quietly and very politely. He'd say, honey, you look real pretty. He said, and you have natural beauty. He said, but don't ever come to the breakfast table without your makeup on and your hair done. And I looked at him. I said, okay. He says, and you know how I like your eyes? Dark, nice and dark, you know. And at the time, you know, because I like to change it out. So I wear like colored contact lenses. Like now I have green on. I have like light brown, and I have blue, and I just like to change because I get bored with myself. So at that time I was, you know, dark hair, dark eyes. He wanted the dark makeup. He had a very specific look that he liked. Now, that's not to say he didn't date blondes and redheads, because we know he did. But if you were brunette, he had a very specific look. He liked, like his mama, dark eyes, dark hair, and he liked the heavy, heavy eye makeup. And today I still wear it, you know. So he said, and I didn't know why, I didn't ask him, but I later found out in the southern states, a lady gets up and the first thing she does her hair and makeup before she ever comes to the breakfast table. That's what you do in the South. It's considered proper, it's what a young lady does, and that's the way they do it. Well, I didn't know that at the time, so I just thought maybe he was being finicky or fidgety, but that's what you do. You come to the breakfast table already made up, already dressed. Well, I didn't know that. But I never came to the table again without that, you know.
Had the watch running so it could wake you up before him.
Yeah, no, you did. But and I'm sure I'm not the only one.
He called you in from the shower, so what did he expect, you know?
Well, he didn't know I was in the shower,
No.
you see. He probably thought I had already gussied up and made myself up, so he probably didn't know. And that's when he said to me, he said, "You don't come to the table without being dressed."
Did Elvis drink both coffee and tea, or was he more a coffee man?
More a coffee guy.
Okay.
More a coffee guy.
Just black coffee or with sugar? Or
yeah,
anything?
black. That's how I like my coffee, black.
Okay.
And so then we would hurry and get dressed. I had to pretty much be packed already, so it kind of lived out of the suitcase because you were always on the go. I had to learn to put my makeup on quickly and all that. But see, I had already done that from my days in modeling. So I'm pretty prepared for his lifestyle already. I'm a night person, I'm traveling a lot, I'm here, I'm there, I'm living out of a suitcase. That's why he and I got along very, very well. Because none of this was new to me, you know. This was very normal for me. So, you know, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. So we'd yeah.
A question. Having all these people sitting around you when you were eating breakfast, wasn't that a little bit annoying?
No.
Wouldn't it have been better just you and Elvis?
No, not really.
Okay, it doesn't matter, you were just used to it.
I'm used to it. It just didn't bother me. And that's one of the things he really liked. He said she's not jealous of him. She can be around him. They can be around her. They don't feel they have to leave because she's unhappy. I love those guys. Those guys are great guys. Every single one of them. I liked every single one of them. And I'm still very good friends with some of them today. They had hearts of gold. They would have taken a bullet for Elvis any day. They loved him. No matter what you hear, no matter what you read, they loved him.
Yeah, but he could not have had much privacy having them around when he was sitting with you or...
No, but you see, here's the thing. When he wanted his privacy, we went up to the bedroom.
That was the private place.
The bedroom was his sanctuary. And people can say, well, he wasn't feeling well, he was depressed, he was in bed for 4 days. The primary reason he might be in bed for 2 or 3 days, and I've spent 2 or 3 days in bed, is just to regroup. You're out on the road, you're giving all this energy, you're expending everything of yourself as a human being. You've got the guys around you that you love, but you know, you need a break. You need your own man cave, as we say in America. I don't know what you say here, you have man caves, but you need your own time. And he needed to get back to his books, and he needed to read and regroup and revitalize and re-energize. And he did that with the Bible and the Word of the Bible. And he did that with his spiritual books, you know. And so he would stay there. We would watch TV, we'd watch movies, we'd order up for the food, the maids would bring the food up, we would watch TV, we would shuck and jive, we would meditate together. We did all kinds of things. You know, everybody constitutes a bedroom with one thing.
Did he ever use music when he was relaxing? Or maybe together with other people when he was in the bedroom? Did he hear music also?
He would play classical music.
Okay.
He would play classical music, and sometimes he would just sing or hum, you know, a cappella. And he was always singing. I mean, I don't remember any time that he wasn't singing except when he was reading his books. When he bought me the car, we drove from Vegas to Palm Springs. He was singing in the car the whole time. Turned the radio on, was singing.
Yeah.
You know, he was always humming a tune or something. He loved to sing. This was for him like breathing. Yeah. Singing was like breathing for him.
And the songs, did they sometimes show his mood? You know, because I can choose some songs depending on what mood I'm in.
Me too.
But did he do that also?
I didn't notice it. I think well, I shouldn't say that, because I'm sure there were times that he was maybe melancholy about things, and of course then he's not going to put on something that's fired up and all that, but he had tons of records and tons of albums. I don't know, I think he had 1,500 or 2,000 albums, and he played them. But usually in our private time, I mean, sometimes he'd go to the piano and he would sing to only me. I remember one time I was in the girls' bathroom, which was off of his office upstairs, and on the other side of his office was his bedroom. And I was in there, I don't know what I was doing, but I was taking off makeup or putting it on or taking a shower, I don't remember. And all of a sudden I heard the piano play in the office. And he called me in and he said, honey, come on in here, I want to play something for you. And I'd sit next to him and he'd play for me and he'd sing. And it was magical.
Did he use that office a lot when you were there? Or?
Not when I was there. Not when I was there, but I'm sure he used it, But, I mean, I remember being in the bedroom and he'd have meetings downstairs or something, and I'd stay upstairs, I'd watch TV, or I'd read my spiritual books. And then he'd come back up and I'd say, oh, have you read this? No, I haven't read that chapter yet. And we'd go back to it, That was our way of relaxing. We just did. But he didn't spend a lot of time in the office. And anything that really was office situated, he had his daddy do, or his secretaries do at the time, or Joe Esposito would do it, or the colonel. He would call them and say, I need this. Or he'd call Charlie in and say, here's the set list, write the set list down. Or here's what we're going to do. We might change this up, so tell the guys we might change it. He would write things down and then give it to one of the guys to do it.
And Charlie lived in the house.
Yeah.
When he went up the stairs, he had this little...
And then after Elvis passed away, I got a call from Joe Esposito, and he said, Charlie is looking to move to Los Angeles. I said, really? He said, yeah, he's going to try his luck out here playing as a musician, because he needed a job. Everybody was out of a job when Elvis passed away. So he said, do you think you could find a place in your building for him? I said, I'll do my best, because he wanted to be around people he knew. Well, he knew me and Joe. It was too expensive where Joe lived in Beverly Hills. I lived a mile outside Beverly Hills. So it was a little bit cheaper, not much, but cheaper. And he said, he'll be near me, he'll be there with you in the building, it'll make him feel comfortable. So I went to my manager and I said, look, I have a special request. I said, do you have any apartments coming up? And he said, actually we do. I said, could I please have it for my friend? And he said, what's so special about your friend? And then I told him. He goes, yeah. And really, it's like who you know. In the world, it's who you know. So I said, this was Elvis's right-hand guy, his guitar player, his buddy, his friend, and he really needs a place. So he moved right downstairs below me.
That's great.
It's great. So we had some really good times. We had some really good heart-to-heart talks, and when he missed Elvis, he would come up and he would kind of vent to me, and, I miss him. I said, I know, Charlie, I miss him too. So we became closer because of that. I stayed close friends with, I'm still friends with Al Strada, Dave Hebler, not everybody, and not everybody wants to be friends with everybody. That's the problem. There were a lot of jealousies between the guys, and there still are today. And there are people that just don't want to know that guy that was there or that girl that was there. They don't want to be friends with them anymore. Things happen, life changes, life moves on in different directions.
Yeah, that is how life is many places.
Yeah.
But going back, we are
to the tour.
Close to it, but let's go back to the normal day in the tour.
Yeah.
You had your breakfast, and then you had to do the makeup that day, of course.
Yeah, get on the plane. Now, if I wasn't able to do the makeup, he said, just put your sunglasses on. So I put the sunglasses on, a little lipstick, and go to the plane. Because he knew people were taking pictures. And he didn't want to look bad for the fans. He didn't want me to look bad for the fans, because they were always photographing. So he always tried to be at his best. He couldn't always, but you have to remember, people around him 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
Now, even though the guys didn't take pictures, the minute he'd step out, there was paparazzi, there was a fan with a camera. This man was probably the most photographed man in the world. I mean, you can go to Memphis Mansion and look, and you won't see one picture that's the same out of every single album or CD or DVD. The man was photographed.
Yeah.
And he was used to it. So in the plane, in the back of the plane, he'd be resting or sleeping on the bed, and I'd finish up my makeup. So when I go back to visit, or I go back and I see the plane, the memories for me are just huge. I go and somebody looks at the bed, they have nothing to make of it. For us, we slept there, we enjoyed there, we studied there, that was the bedroom. And then you have the sink, and the toilet. And I had all my makeup spread out, and I'm in there doing my makeup at the sink. So when I go back and see this plane, this holds very different memories for me.
And Elvis, did he do, he had Charlie, of course, help him a little bit with the hair, and Larry, of course, was the one taking care of it. But he did some things himself also.
Oh yeah, his dressing, his bathroom was a mess. He had stuff strewn everywhere. He had, his Bruton or his Aramis.
When he performed, he had done the eyes a little bit sharper so people could see them.
Yeah, because you're on stage.
Yeah.
And he had naturally, brown eyelashes and brown.
So he needed to make them black like the hair.
Yeah, and his hair he wanted jet black like Tony Curtis and all that. So he wanted, he liked it dark, and he really did. So, a little bit mascara on the eyebrows, and here a little bit of eyeliner.
But he did that himself, or did he need?
Yeah, he did. Sure, he did. And sometimes I did a little bit, and sometimes one of the guys would a little bit.
Yeah.
Just depended on how he felt. If he didn't feel like, he goes, "Oh, honey, can you do a little liner at the end, or can you do a little,
Yeah.
But a little bit, not a lot, because also he would sweat a lot. And you have to be careful, because if you're wearing mascara or eyeliner or anything, it can get in the eye, it can burn the eye, it gets under here. So it was very little. He didn't need a lot. It's not like he went out with full-on makeup or something.
It's just to make the complete picture.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
It's amazing, yeah.
So what you did most of the time was actually just relaxing, reading books, talking about philosophy and religion and things like that.
And the thing is, just being there for him.
Yeah.
Being there for him. I never got bored. But I do remember one time it was getting to me. And I remember we were in the bedroom of a hotel, always the Hilton. So we were at one of the Hiltons, because we always stayed there. And it actually did get a little monotonous, and I was getting a headache. And I remember we were in the bedroom of one of the Hiltons, and I started knocking my head on the wall like this. Not hard, but just... And he looked at me and goes, "Honey, what are you doing?" And he says, "Are you okay?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "But I'm just, like, how do you do this day after day after day?" And he said, "Honey, come here." And I went over to him, and he sat me down, and he held my hands. He said, "Listen to me." He said, "I'm going to tell you something." He said, "First of all, you have to be very disciplined." And he said, "You have to know that nothing and no one is forever." That hit me hard. Nothing and no one is forever. It's for as long as it is. When we're on tour, it's not forever. It will end, and we'll go home, and we'll have our time. So don't think of it that it's never ending. He said, it's not a permanent situation. It's temporary. And he said, if you can't be disciplined, and it's not something you can handle, he says, I won't be able to bring you on tour with me. And it was very much like a father talking to his daughter that I never had. So I looked at him and I said, okay. I said, I won't do it again. It won't ever happen again. Because it bothered him to see me being out of sorts. It got to him. And he didn't want me to be that way. He wanted me to enjoy my time with him, which of course I did, and enjoy being on tour, which I did. But, so it could get to you after a while. And I'm sure it got to Sheila, I'm sure it got to some of the girls that went on tour with him. You had to be very, very disciplined. And I had to learn to be very disciplined with him. And he was very disciplined. Except when he was off, and then he would relax, and then he could just be. Yeah. But being on tour was difficult, and the flying was difficult. I remember one time we were going through a storm, and we were coming back we were on our way. I don't remember where we were on our way to. I think we had left a concert going into the next city for the next day. We flew out that night and we were going to go to a hotel. And we were in a storm, and I am scared to death of flying, even to this day. And we were like this in the plane. And you know, the plane is not sit there and have seatbelts on it. And he had redone the whole plane so it looked like the inside of somebody's house, obviously, with chairs and tables and couches and all of that. So we were sitting at one of the tables back here to the back of the plane. And Elvis was on my right, I was sitting on his left, and we were talking to some people. I think Sonny and Red were at the table with us, and we were all just talking. And all of a sudden, we hit an air bump that was so bad. I thought my head was going to hit the top of the airplane. And I grabbed onto Elvis, and I went, I'm scared, like that. He goes, honey, just calm down, calm down. And he said, nothing is ever going to happen to you while you're with me, anywhere. Little did I know at that time he was still afraid of flying, which is why in the early days he would, you know, buy a bus. He would bus across country. They would drive. He was scared to death of flying till he realized the only way to get anywhere and be there on time was to finally buy his own plane, which he did only the last 2 years of his life. He only had the Lisa Marie maybe 2.5, 3 years. At the most, he didn't have private planes his whole life. So that for him was a really big thing. Having his own private plane was a big deal for him.
Yeah. But he managed to calm you down?
He calmed me down momentarily. And I forgot this story until Dave Hebler told me this story. Dave and I were doing a function in Las Vegas a couple of years ago. And one of Dave's stories was this story. And I looked and I said, are you kidding me? Like, did you just make that up? And he goes, you don't remember that? I said, no. He goes, you were so out of it. And then he told the story to the whole audience in Las Vegas. And the story was, I was so scared, I was just shaking. And when the plane finally landed, and it landed like this and skidded, and you know, everything, the air was just horrible. Everybody got off the plane. Elvis got off the plane, and I went to the back of the bedroom. Well, he thought later on, he told me, that I went to get my purse or whatever, because the luggage was in charge, the guys were in charge of luggage. On my purse, and I usually kept the coat in our bedroom. So I went back, and apparently I didn't get the coat and the purse. Apparently what happened, Elvis went down to the limo. Everybody went down into their respective cars and limos, and they're about to shut the door, and Elvis goes, whoa, wait a minute, where's Mindy? Where's Mindy? Dave's sitting in the car, and he goes, Dave, where's Mindy? He goes, I don't know, boss. He goes, well, go find her. Is she still on the plane? He goes, I don't know, I'll go look for her. So Dave goes up to the plane, and you know, it was the days when you had the plank where you walked up the plane. So he walks up the plane, and he's looking all around for me. He comes back down, and he tells Elvis, she's not on the plane. He goes, that can't be. She's got to be on the plane. She's not going to just walk off. So Dave goes back up, like reluctantly, goes back up to the plane, and he's looking and he's looking and he's looking. The last place he's thinking is, I'm in the bedroom. Well, what happened is I was so out of it that I was crouched down in like a fetal position with my coat over me and the bedspread over me, and he couldn't see me. So he went back to the bedroom looking for me, even where the toilet is, couldn't find me. Finally, he said he looked on the other side of the bed like that and saw something. But he thought it was just a pile of sheets or you know, the bedding or something. And he, for whatever reason, he took the bedspread off, and I was crouched down shaking, he said, just shaking. He said, you were catatonic, which means you can't move, you can't talk, you are unabled. He said he picked me up, he got my purse, he picked me up, and he literally carried me down the stairs of the plane to Elvis in the back seat. Elvis looked at Dave and said, what the hell happened to her? He said, boss, I don't know, but she's catatonic. I couldn't even speak. He put me in the car. Elvis put his arms around me. He just held me. And he said, honey, are you okay? Are you okay? I don't even remember answering him. But Dave told me this later. I said, I don't even remember that whole episode.
It's crazy. And it must have been hard going back to the plane again next time you had to fly, right?
I had to take 3 planes just to get here. I am scared to death of flying, still. Still.
Yeah.
It's, you can put, I mean, I've had 30-foot pythons wrapped around my neck. I've been stabbed in the knee from swords, bleeding, you know, sewn up with no anesthesia. I mean, I've gone through a lot. I'm a tough girl. But I think a lot of it is because I've had premonitions that I might go down in an airplane. And because my premonitions are true, usually, it scares me. You know, and I hope that's not how I go. That being
Hopefully you're not right all the time.
Yeah, I hope so. From your mouth to God's ears. But, you know, really, I think a lot of it is because I'm not in control. And I'm not able to fly the plane. I'm not able to jump out with a parachute. I'm not able to help myself.
But then again, flights is the most safe way to travel.
And nobody loves looking out the window more than me.
Yeah.
I love pressing my nose against the window and going, oh, look at these mountains, they're so beautiful. And then on the way here, we're going through the most beautiful cumulus white clouds, puffy, like, you know, like I'm in a cotton ball. I mean, it was just beautiful. And then landing and seeing the snow on the ground. And I mean, you have to imagine that our forefathers, however many years ago, not very many years ago, 100 years ago, weren't flying. Thousands of people lived on this planet that never got to see this planet as we see it. And I always say to God, I said, if I willed myself back here for this time period, it's because I wanted to travel. I want to see the world. And I do.
Yeah.
You know?
Maybe we could talk for you, I'm sure. It's really nice. And I think we should make a final of the story of Elvis, because time is running out.
Yeah.
And you were with Elvis until the...
Last time I saw him was, I believe, in the month of November of '76.
Yeah. And with Elvis, he was not the kind of guy who said, Mindy, you know, I have found somebody else, so I have to break up and go. Was he the kind of guy who more let it just be less and less? Or?
He didn't, but if I write the book, if I write my own book, my own life story, I will tell what happened. Something happened, and he became jealous of somebody I had dated, and it didn't sit well with him. And at that time in the South, I think he was afraid that that would come out.
That a woman who was with him went out with another man.
That it was not perhaps approved of.
Okay.
In the South at that time.
Yeah.
Now, the other thing is, he had insecurities like anybody. And I know he was very insecure about that. So let it be.
Yeah.
Now, what I have been told recently, and there are two things I'd like to end this with if we can, because I think your listeners and your fans who watch what you do would be interested, and that is that it's just been made to me in the last year and a half that in 1977 he asked for me. I never knew that. I was told by two people in his entourage that were there on both occasions that he had asked Joe Esposito, one time was in Syracuse, New York, where he had asked Joe Esposito to call me and get me out there. He said, she gets me, she understands me, and I want her here. I never got that call. As time has gone by, the puzzle has come together more, and I know why I never got the call. I won't go into it here, but it breaks my heart. And this person told me, who was in the room with Elvis and Joe, I don't care, send the plane. And this person said, it'll be 4.5 hours till the plane gets here. It'll be another 4.5 hours till the plane gets back. And she won't be here till tomorrow. And he said, I don't care. This person came, excuse me, back into the room and said, Elvis, it's late. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm going to bed. Just forget about it. But you didn't normally tell Elvis Presley to forget about it. You did what he wanted you to do. But this particular person, I have no reason to disbelieve. And on top of it, he told me 6 months ago, 8 months ago maybe, 6 months before that, I had spent Easter with somebody who was with Elvis. who I'm still very good friends with. And he said to me, "Did you know Elvis had been asking for you the last year?" I said, "No." Now he told me first, this particular person doesn't talk to, it was Larry Geller, doesn't talk to Larry Geller. Okay? They had no way to communicate that they were saying the same thing at different times. He tells me the same kind of story, but that it was in Palm Springs. Elvis asked Joe to call me. Never got the phone call. So what had happened was Elvis had forgotten about the incident, that I had dated somebody long before I met him, and that he was insecure, but he didn't care anymore. That was over.
So the date was actually before you met Elvis?
Yeah.
That was the problem, okay.
Yeah. It was before I met him.
So it's not because you were dating another guy?
No,
while
when
you were
I
with
dated
him?
Elvis, no, from the minute I met him, I never dated anybody else, ever. And so this breaks my heart.
Yeah.
This
And
breaks my
last
heart.
time you talked with Elvis in the phone, because you talked with him occasionally, right?
Yeah, I spoke with him after his birthday. I think it was February, and I asked him how his birthday went. He said it was good. He had a good birthday. I said, and I thanked him. I said, "Thank you for everything you've done for me. And, I will always love you." And he was seeing somebody else at the time. But again, it was during this time that apparently he was asking for me. So I'll never know. But I told him I loved him. I said, I miss you, and thank you for everything. So what do you do, So that was that. And then the next call I get is from Joe Esposito telling me, "Pack your bags very quickly, get on the Lisa Marie, and get over here for the funeral." And I was just beside myself.
And you spent 3 days in Memphis?
Spent 3 days, spent 3 days. The viewing room was in the music room. So when you would walk into the foyer, which for me is his most sacred place in the house now, because that's where he laid in rest for 80,000 people to walk through the house to see him, right under the chandelier, which is right under the bathroom where he passed away. So when people walk into the house, many people say, "All of a sudden I just felt him." I said, "Yeah, you felt him because that's where he laid in rest."
Yeah.
Other people will say they felt him in other parts of the house, but most people, not knowing that that's where he was, say, "I felt him there." His vibration is still that high from what he left.
Yeah. But I can feel in you that you still love Elvis after all these years, even if it's more than 40 years since he passed away. What is it that made him so special, that made your love for him grow so big? Because if you look back at time, many women would have been mad at a man they dated if they found out that he had not only one other date or maybe 2 other dates.
And they still are.
Yeah.
They still are.
And
they're still jealous. They're still upset.
Yeah. What was it that made you have this big love for Elvis?
Because I loved him unconditionally. When you love someone unconditionally, you take it all. You take the good with the bad. You swallow your pride. You swallow your ego. It doesn't mean you don't have self-respect. It just means that if that's the only way you can have it, then that's the way you take it. Because Elvis was not a one-man woman. He just wasn't. He loved women. He did. There's nothing wrong with that. Many men are not meant to be married. Many men are not meant to be in one relationship. You can't make them something they're not, because then you destroy who they are. You can't make any human being what they are not. You will destroy them in the process. And they will not like you for it. And they will not be happy. And what will happen is they will end up resenting you and leaving you in the end anyway. That's how that works. And because I loved him unconditionally, and again, because I was in the entertainment industry, I already understood that. Because everybody in the entertainment industry is dating everybody. I saw it at a very young age. So his lifestyle and my lifestyle were not different. The difference is that I didn't want anybody else. Nobody else attracted me. When I met him, I fell in love with him, the soul, the heart. I didn't fall in love with the entertainer. I fell in love with the man. That's the difference.
It must have been very hard to be a man dating you after Elvis. I can imagine that. You don't need to answer that.
I've never married. What can I tell you? No, I've had some nice relationships, but where do you go from that? I mean, really, where do you go? I mean, I know that there are women that dated him that got married and had happy lives and had kids. It didn't happen for me that way. It just didn't. I had a couple of really heavy-duty loves after that. I did. But it just didn't work out in the way that I wanted it to. You know, maybe I wanted marriage and children, maybe they didn't. You never know. Everybody's different. And I think one of the most important things in life, no matter what it is timing. Everything in life is timing. It's either right or it's not. It could be right in a year, or it could have been right 5 years ago, but it's no longer the right time anymore. And hey, it could be right 10 years from now. But in this moment, and this is all we have, it's not right. The timing's not right. So I was, 24, 25, 26, 27 years old. I was pretty smart for that age. I mean, I'd been doing a lot of self-delving into life and what it was about and why was I here and what was my purpose. And, you don't do that when you're a little kid sitting at home, I did. I was a little kid sitting at home like, God, why am I here? Who does that? Most kids are out playing. I'm like, why am I here? I'd go to my mom, Mom, why am I here? Well, you have to ask yourself that question, wouldn't you? So I did. I'd go to my room by myself. I'd ask myself, I'd ask God, I'd talk to the Lord, why am I here? And I'd listen and I'd wait patiently for his answer. And I still talk to God every day. And one of the things I want to say and I hope, I really hope that this was able to happen, is that from the last time I went in to view him, because I went back and forth over 3 days, going and seeing him and talking to him and, kiss him on his forehead and all that. And I told him that I know he'd passed over. One of the things he had said to me that would always stuck with me was that whenever it was that he would die, he said that he would find a way to come back to the people that he cared about, the people that he loved, and let them know that he had crossed over to the other side and he was okay. He was healthy, he was happy, he was okay. And it's not that I ever sat and waited for it, but it did happen. Other stories I have that we don't have time for today where I can tell you things that happened are incredible, and still they happen. But when I left my apartment, I was in such a hurry to pack and go. And I thought, because he loved studying Egyptian, readings and Egyptology, and Elvis was fascinated by what people would put in the tombs of the Egyptian pharaohs and the princes. They would always give them gold, or they would give them something to take on their journey home with them, their spiritual journey home. So I thought, what can I give him that he can take with him that nobody can see and that nobody would know? So I found this little prayer book, and someone else has written about it in their book, but it's not their story, it's my story. So if you ever hear about it or read it, it's my story. I took the prayer book from my apartment and I underlined certain passages in it that I thought that he would like, because that's what he did. And I took the prayer book out, my last viewing of him, before we took him the next morning to the mausoleum. And I read him from the prayer book. And then I closed the prayer book, I sang him a little song, and I kissed him on the forehead, and I put my right hand on his chest here, and I bid him adieu. I said my final goodbye. And then I took the prayer book and I slid it under his left lapel, under his white jacket. And I hope and pray that that's where it stayed. I hope that he took that home with him.
It's a good story.
Yeah.
And another thing more practical is that it must have been some kind of chaos those days in Memphis, all this press, all these people outside, and also many of his girlfriends staying at the same place.
There really weren't that many. There was Linda was there, and Margaret was there. I was there. His ex-wife was there.
But that's, in my eyes, we've not known that many. It's
Yeah.
many.
But that's
But,
it.
yeah. But that's 4 people, right? So,
Well, one is an
okay.
ex-wife.
Yeah.
One was Anne Margaret, who he had not been seeing. One was someone he saw still, and myself.
Yeah. But it went okay.
You know, the thing is, out of respect, we didn't talk to each other. I didn't go talk to Anne Margaret or anybody else. It wasn't because I was jealous or angry. We just didn't. It was a time to mourn him. We were there for him. We all loved him. Not just women. Men loved him. Every woman wanted to date Elvis Presley, and every man wanted to be Elvis Presley.
That's true. We have to end the program, but I want to just go fast through the career. You continued making the TV series.
Yeah.
You made other movies.
I did other films, other TV shows. I hosted. I worked on a show called The Price is Right. We finished the TV series. So I've continued to work. You know, I'm not someone that is...
Did you go back to do theater also again? Or?
I really didn't go back to theater. I'd like to. Theater scares me, though, now as I'm older, because it's so in the moment. You drop a line or you freeze, you're dead.
Yeah.
You can't freeze on the stage. You cannot freeze in the theater. You have to really be in the moment. And that's why I believe that theater actors are the best actors, because you really have to know your dialogue. You have to know your lines. You have to be in the moment. You don't have 10 more takes, you can take it over. You can't. You have somebody off stage feeding you a line, you know, like let's say I'm supposed to say, well, how did you get there? And let's say I freeze. Somebody off stage is going, how did you get there? How did you get there? Oh, so how did you get there? You know, I think now that I'm older and now that I'm really much more in the moment and I'm really able to hone in on what is important in that moment, I'm living in the moment more. So I think I'd be a lot better in theater than I was as a kid, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it has been great talking to you.
It's been good talking to you too.
Love
I
it.
hope your people that follow you enjoy them. And, you know, I wish all of his fans nothing but love. I love all of his fans. He loved them. And I just want to tell them to keep raising him up in love and respect. And we're not important. He is the only one that's important. Elvis is why we're all here. I'm not an important person, only he is. I don't puff myself up about that.
But thank you very much to share your memories with Elvis with us.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. After 40 long years, it's a long time.
And to all of you, thank you very much for watching. I hope to see you again another time. Thanks.